meeting we have the Peace Regional Economic Development Alliance, PREDA, and Dan Dillard.
Yeah.
And
take it away.
Take it away. It's all yours, sir.
Thank you, Michael. How much time do I get?
Kelly.
We first have to call your word. And so adoption of the agenda. Motion to make.
I make a motion to the adoption of the agenda.
All those in favor? Perfect. Now we can get this.
Now you're on. Now you're ready.
There you
Okay.
go.
So how much time do I have? Because I'll tailor it to it.
Our council meeting starts at 7, so you
I
have
got that.
50 minutes.
Okay, perfect. So I don't have a. Oh, no. Okay, I talk a lot, so I'm gonna have to watch it. So, well, thank you very much for inviting us here to talk. We've met many, many times with LSLEA. PREDA is one of the 12 alliances that exist in the province. We actually want to work very closely with LSLEA and the PREDA Alliance, which is in the Mackenzie County area. So we have regular meetings and we try and coordinate even when we're at chairs meetings and things like that to try and get together and focus on things that impact the Northwest. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about how PREDA runs, because all the alliances run very differently, and a lot of that has happened because of the changes that took place when the government basically tossed us out of the government office. And as you'll recall, because you used to have Greg Radstack was your government representative here, and you had a government office. And at that time, the government did some major cutbacks to regional development, and they closed some of the office. Yours was actually a brand new office. I don't even know if you had it for 2 years, then they shut it down. And they reduced the number of staff, and so you ended up losing Greg from this area. The one for PREDA was Bob Hall out of Grand Prairie, and he also left, and they reduced the high-level office as well. So in this area right now, you guys are serviced by Mark, I forget his name. Vandenberg out of Edmonton, and we're serviced by Elisa Houle out of Grand Prairie. And then there's another gal out of Peace River who doesn't really work with us, but she does some sort of research stuff for all of our alliances. So first of all, I am Dan Dillard. For those who don't know me, I first moved up here about 15 years ago. I moved up and worked with Flaren Area Economic Development. Did that for a couple of years, and then I went and worked for the government of Alberta for about 15 months and worked with PREDA and the succession. PREDA used to include Mackenzie County. It was one large alliance. It was too big, and it didn't make sense because at that time Grand Prairie was a member. The Mackenzie County area is huge and completely different from everything that's happening in PREDA. It made very common sense for them to separate as an independent alliance, and I was the manager responsible for facilitating the separation and getting them all set up as an alliance. I left there and worked for Northern Sunrise County and did economic development and land use planning for them. And then I left to become the executive director of the Northern Alberta Development Council. I did that for about 7 years. And then I decided to semi-retire, and I got approached by PREDA to take this on as a part-time position. I am part-time. I basically work 10 hours a week. I get paid the whopping amount of $2,500 a month. But I do it because I like it, and also in PREDA, my position is set up that I also can take other contracts. So PREDA is just a small one and facilitated. We also have somebody who does all the admin work, so I don't do the website or the books or any of that stuff. So I just do the executive director stuff, so the schmoozing and the, that kind of stuff. So PREDA itself, that's actually not a really good map, but that's the only one that the government has to actually show where all the different alliances are. PREDA is the one that kind of has the box there. We're unique in a couple ways. I mean, you guys are a member of LSLEA. MD of Big Lakes was a member of LSLEA, and then about two and a half years ago they left. At that time they approached PREDA, and we did a presentation to them, and they decided to join. So that one, I've drawn that box there that covers part of that area. That's actually MD of Big Lakes. And the reason we go outside the boundaries is we also have a reciprocal agreement with the Northeast Economic Development Commission, which is Fort St. John, Fort Nelson, that whole region there in BC. We partner with them because a number of our members actually line the BC border, and a number of the issues that that's impacting them is because of BC. So it could be, if you look, it's kind of where in that big box, the bottom little white star there, that's near the Gundy Road. The Gundy Road is a road that Saddle Hills County has. Residents that live in Alberta in that area actually have to drive into BC to get into Alberta. There's no roads that go through. So for that reason, we have some assets in working with BC on how do we resolve those kind of issues. To the top part of that box is Fort St. John, and they have the Fort St. John Airport, which offers services to Vancouver, Edmonton, Calgary, and a large number of our members in the Northern Peace area actually go to Fort St. John to fly out. So we do it, we kind of ignore the border, and just work together with them. But basically that gives you sort of an idea how many alliances there are. The one anomaly is also the Athabasca and Athabasca County, which should be belonging to LSLEA, but now that you have Darcy on board, I'm sure she's going to fix that. So those are who our members are. We are largely focused on rural and small urbans. Grand Prairie was a member many, many moons ago. They left. It was initially people thought that was going to cause us a lot of grief because of they were our biggest member. Our membership fees are based on 50 cents per capita. So Grand Prairie had a population of about 55,000. If you do the math, it's around 27,000 we get from Grand Prairie. The difficulty we had is that Grand Prairie insisted that any funds we received from them were spent back in the city of Grand Prairie. So losing them actually didn't impact us because we still had the same amount of funds to use for the rest of the region, plus we had all the government funds, which we no longer had to spend in Grand Prairie. So it was actually beneficial to PREDA. We also had a number of new members. We've gained 5 new municipal members in the last year and a half. And then we also gained an additional, we have a number of associate members, all the ones you see there. This year we're introducing a policy where we allow all the chambers of commerce to belong for free. We're not actually charging them. And the reason for that is because we're expanding our industry membership. We see the chambers of commerce as a valuable partner in getting industry to join. And the reason we've decided to focus on industry members is because of the finances, to be quite honest. We can deliver services for them, and I'll get into that. But by having more industry members, it helps boost up our finances, and PREDA, our goal is to become self-sustaining without the government funds. We still want the government funds, but we don't want to be held hostage. So just to give you an idea of what happened, because I don't know how familiar you are with what happened when the government first did their big change here. But as an example for PREDA, and your area will be a little bit different, but in PREDA prior to 2012, we had 2 full-time government employees, 1 full-time PREDA administration, which worked out, well, right now we have 0 government employees, 2 part-time PREDA staff, and then we have additional part-time paid by contractors. And by that I mean, in your package you'll see there's some information on our municipal project services. And we actually provide services to municipalities at a fee, and we hire local contractors to deliver that. And we retain 15% of the fee. So if there's a contract for, let's say, $10,000 that we give to a local consultant to do an economic development study, the contract is signed with PREDA. They actually pay PREDA. We retain $1,500, and the contractor gets $8,500. The benefit to the contractor is that it's pretty easy to get contracts because PREDA gets quite a few of them. The benefit for the municipalities is we stand behind the contract. My background is economic development. If there was ever a contract that was done and it didn't meet the standard of that municipality, we guarantee it. So we'll redo it for you for free. So that's where we get the additional part-time. Initially, staffing costs, when the government had their government employees, they paid about $250,000 in staffing costs. PREDA also paid for an additional admin person for $50,000. Our total administration costs and my costs are $72,000. That includes everything from the books to the websites to my costs to the administration costs. That's what we spend on administration, and the reason we do that is because we get $75,000 from the government, and we didn't want to use municipal dollars to actually pay for staffing. We wanted to use that for projects. We no longer have a government office. We don't have an office at all. Office is in my home. We decided to eliminate that. When it left the government, it moved into a community futures office. We didn't see value in having an office because we were paying close to $1,000 to have the office. Nobody came into the office anyways. I like to work in my pajamas, so I like having a home office because I don't have to, I can get up in the morning, have a cup of coffee, and go right away to my computer. If we do have meetings, we hold it in my kitchen or up on the deck in the summer, or we've utilized one of the existing government offices. We go to the community futures or we go to the government building and just ask for some office space and they give it to us. We do all of our teleconferencing through MagicJack. It's cost us a one-time fee of about $50. And for a period last year, we were in Mexico for 4 months, and we ran off MagicJack and did teleconferencing at absolutely no cost, and nobody even would know that we were there because it's a Grand Prairie phone number that we use. So we've learned to become very, very cost-effective and to do it in such a way that it's still beneficial to all the membership. As far as equipment goes, government supplied absolutely everything in equipment, and now we basically have a laptop, a projector. Most of the other supplies I actually supply. For a while there, we couldn't afford a printer, so we would go to Staples and do all the photocopying. We do virtually everything in black and white because color costs more money, and we're just being very, very frugal, and our membership actually appreciates that. So that's just a little bit more information on some of the finances and the website, meeting rooms. I talked about most of this. Travel costs is a huge one. The government used to pay for all the travel costs. Now PREDA has to pay for all of our mileage, and that can add up. We do not pay our members for sitting on PREDA. That has to be paid by the municipality. Utilities in the old days were also paid by the government. Nowadays we have to cover all those costs. Funding, the government used to provide us up to $400,000 per year. As you all know now, we get $75,000. In addition to that, you get project funding of $25,000. It's for PREDA, our membership is based on 50 cents per capita, but we do have an additional amount that we charge. We charge 3 cents per capita for our project fund, and that was when we set that up in about 2012. The project fund was designed so that municipalities could apply for funds to work on specific projects to do with economic development or something like that. And there is information in your package on that as well. So we had a strategic planning session with our membership. They all liked the idea. We introduced a 30-cent voluntary fee. We raised about close to $30,000 on that fee. We add the $25,000 that the government gives us for project funding. They give us about $55,000. We created a new committee of 4 economic development officers. Both chambers Community Futures sit on there, and the Francophone Chamber sits on there. They review the applications, which we get about 4 times a year, and then we actually fund projects for the communities. And I'll show you some of the projects in a minute.
How do you charge industry based on that model?
How do we charge industry? I don't remember if I have any. Industry is charged on number of employees. So the lowest amount is $250, and it goes all the way up to $10,000. So we don't unfortunately have any at 10,000, but those ones we're aiming at. We are approaching organizations like CN Rail, so we think that they should be a member. But we are working with Shell right now to be a member. We just signed on Jandel Homes. We have a couple website companies. We have Stuart Weir, Stuart Weir, are members, and so we're building on that as well. And the benefit they get out of being a member is, as an example, our AGM's coming up here on November 7th. They get to, so Jandel Homes is doing a presentation at that. They've actually sponsored the conference as well, with the AGM as well, and they get to set up a booth and things like that. I actually regularly will contact Jandel Homes when I know there's a community. So right now they're working in the community of Woking is getting 4 new homes. Berwyn is supposed to get 10. St. Isidore, I can't remember how many they're getting. Falera is getting some. And basically the reason Jandel enjoys being a member is because when we get a heads up that a community has some lots and they're looking to do some development, we'll phone up that particular company and say, so here's some opportunity, we connect the 2 together. Jandel Homes is thrilled to bits because they've sold more homes in the last year. I'm sure that they've sold in a long, long time.
So industry isn't a voting member?
No. Industry can't vote. They do have to pay membership costs. They can come to our meetings, and our meetings are a little bit different. You guys, how many meetings do you guys have a year? Do you know?
8.
About 8? Okay, so PREDA, we did PREDA different. So PREDA, when I took over PREDA was in debt about $20,000. We had virtually no money. So they approached me. I was just leaving Northern Alberta Development Council, and I looked at their books and I looked at how they were running things. And to be perfectly honest, it was horribly, horribly run. And much as I love the government, I have to say that they really dropped the ball on that one. It was, and when they only gave 3 months to do the transition, the problem is they didn't train the people who were taking over what to do with the organization, and the government didn't do everything right either. So as an example for PREDA at that time had about, I think they had about 19 or 20 members. They had 18 people who sat on the board, supposedly. 6 from the north piece, 6 from the central piece, 6 from the south piece. The problem was when the government staff had actually filed the papers, they only listed 6 members. So technically we only had a 6-member board. That 6-member board was the executive, but the problem was none of the minutes for the past 12 years actually were legally valid, because people were making motions that by industry Canada Senate were not members. They were not on board. So what we actually did, rather than try and redraft everything and recreate this whole 18-member board, we dropped the board to 6 members. So we have a 6-member executive. They hold a management board meeting 4 times a year. It's the first Thursday of every August, November, February, and May. And then the next day we hold a membership meeting, and that's open to the entire membership. It's a full-day meeting. It always includes lunch. Wherever we host it, the community sponsors that lunch. While the executive makes the decisions for the membership board, the members, so we have a meeting the night before. And at that one, we as a staff report, what have we achieved, what are we working on, where are we at? They approve everything, we move over to the meeting the next day. We report to the membership meeting where we're at this point. The membership gives us advice and input as to what do they want to see happen in the next 3 months. That's what we work on. Then we report to the management board that evening, and then we go through the whole process. So membership has an incredible amount of say. There's no lack of say for membership, just because they're not sitting on the board. The challenge we have is we have 27 municipalities, we have industry, we have all these other, there's no way we could include everybody. So they actually elect who sits on that. We have our AGM on November 7th in McLean, and at that one they will elect the 6 members who will sit on the management team. And so that's when those are the people who run PREDA. And I can honestly say we have not had any grief from any of the members that they weren't being included or they didn't have a say in what's happening. They all have my phone number, they all know where we live. I'm in my municipalities. There's not a single municipality I haven't been in the last 3 months. I visit every single municipality, and I mean I'm kind of fortunate because our municipalities are fairly close, so I can hit 2 or 3 at a time. But we have regular contact with the municipalities, and that seems to have worked really, really well. So the other thing that I was mentioning there is we were $20,000 in the hole. So the challenge we had, and at that time, because I understand LSLEA, you guys give grants as well, right? So if somebody from municipality, you guys decide you need a grant to do something, you apply for a grant. So PREDA was doing that as well, but the problem is there's no paperwork. So when I got on board, all of a sudden we get these invoices saying, okay, you know, you promised us $6,000. I'm like, okay, well, I don't have any grant agreements here, you know. Oh, there's an email there somewhere. Really, that's not a grant agreement. And so when we actually went through everything, they had overcommitted by $20,000. So we had to do some serious work in order to rescue PREDA because it was in very, very, it was very close to shutting down, simply because we didn't have the money. Like we just simply didn't have the money. And so when we came up with the model whereby I get paid and everything, we decided the administration side of things was the most important. You have to get your grant applications filled out. You have to, you know, send out your invoices. You have to take care of the books and the website, all that. So we figured out what we'd have to pay for all of that. What was left over is what they paid me. And I told them this is how many hours I'll work for the money to pay me. So that being said, honestly, I can't remember the last time I worked a 10-hour week. But I do like what I do, and so I have to say the PREDA communities are fabulous to work with. You know, they enjoy coming to the meetings. We usually have at least 40 people at every meeting. They participate, you know, and the industry and the community futures, the colleges, they don't have a vote, but they have a say. So, so basically when all this happened, PREDA decided the number 1 priority is going to be self-sustaining. They wanted to get us to a point where we have enough money that even if the government cut back, we would still be okay. And I think I feel fairly secure in saying right now that if we lost funding from the government, we could probably double our rates and our members would stay. So we might lose a couple of the smaller villages, but I think on a whole our members would stay. Advocacy is a big one that we've taken on. So in the last year, we've been advocates for the temporary foreign workers, and I know some of your industries actually supported that. We do work regularly with LSLEA and READY. We see ourselves as a joint team. We need to all work together to represent the Northwest. And so the temporary foreign worker program, the oil on rail was another issue that we're working on regionally, and shadow population, that was the other big one, shadow population. I don't know offhand right now. In our municipal project services that we offer, we are working with Big Lakes right now on a project that's looking at shadow population, also looking at oil on rail, and it is including High Prairie. Even though High Prairie is not a member, that's kind of irrelevant to us because you're in the area and it has to be, you cannot not include it. Like, we don't ignore members or municipalities just because they're not a member of PREDA. That's not really that important to us. So we still work with those communities. But shadow population is a huge issue. If you look at Northern Sunrise County right now, they have a shadow population of about 564 people. Next year, they're going to have close to 3,000 new beds going in camps, just in Northern Sunrise County. That's that whole ceiling development stuff that's happening in Shell. Even MD of Peace, which is a little municipality, they're getting a new camp that I think is 360 beds. So shadow population is a real issue. The challenge is you guys can't count your shadow population. And the reason why shadow population has to live and work in the same community. So while your hotels are filled with workers that actually work in the county somewhere on oil rigs or whatever, they don't live and work in the same community. So Fox Creek, as an example, has a 500-man camp right in the town limits of Fox Creek. They can't be counted by the town because they work in the county, and they can't be counted by the county because they live in the town. So what PREDA has been trying to do is to get a consensus from the government on how you calculate shadow population. And there's a couple challenges. One is that shuttle population can only be counted from March till June, where the majority of our shuttle population are here in the winter months. Another one is that it has to be a minimum of 10% of your regular population. And the third big component is, again, to live and work in the same community. And you know where that's coming from is because we're always overshadowed by Wood Buffalo. Wood Buffalo, when they converted from Fort McMurray to Wood Buffalo, the reality is they're one community. So their workers, regardless of where they live and work in the same community. All of their workers, whether they're in hotels or not, can be counted. But that doesn't work for us. So the idea was to get all municipalities on side to start getting the government to listen to us and understand that we also are a component of the development that's happening in this province. So okay, there you go. Let's see, where am I at next year? We went in our discussion with what do we see as a priority? It was one of the things we said to PREDA. They were doing 1,000 different things, and you can't do that. When you have limited funds, you have to focus. And so we picked 3 areas that they thought were of greatest importance to the PREDA region, and that was labor, transportation, and water. So in the labor issue, we've actually, last winter, and this is one of the advantages of being paid poorly, and being part-time, is my wife and I actually worked out of Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. And we did that because we set up an office for PREDA to work with temporary foreign workers. The Alberta government has 13 agreements in place with Jalisco, Mexico, which is a state in Mexico that includes Puerto Vallarta. My wife and I actually paid the entire cost. There was no cost to PREDA. We set up an office there. We brought all our equipment with us, and we worked with the government of Alberta out of Guadalajara, and we found temporary foreign workers. And people think we went there because it's a wonderful place and a nice place to live, and it truly is. We enjoy it very, very much, but I paid for it, and so I'm not going to choose to live in this lovely little town. And the other reason we did it is because Puerto Vallarta, everybody speaks English. It's a tourism destination, and if you're going to bring in Mexican workers, you want Mexican workers that speak English. Had we have gone to even Guadalajara, the challenge is most of them don't speak English. They never would have been accepted. So it was very strategic on our part. It was also to look at opportunities for trade opportunities for the Peace region. Mexico and Alberta have a lot of agreements in place as far as agriculture goes as well. So we're looking at opportunities for that and post-secondary. They haven't. The federal government and the Alberta government work in Guadalajara, Mexico to put on fairs for education. And traditionally the southern colleges in Alberta go down there to promote their colleges to students there. And don't kid yourself, there's actually a fairly large middle class in Mexico that does come to Canada to go to school. But predominantly for us, it's the southern colleges. We went down with information from Northern Lakes College and Grand Prairie College to attend that fair and promote that as well. So that's what we're doing down there. It also gave a reason for some people to join from an industry perspective because we were looking for temporary foreign workers for them. We are involved in an Aboriginal engagement program. That's not going so well, quite honestly. The intent there is that we wanted to create economic development within an Aboriginal community. We understand that, you know, especially our area is very sensitive because when you bring in foreign workers, people say, well, you have a huge Aboriginal population, why aren't you putting them to work? And we know that there's some challenges in getting Aboriginal population into our workforce. So we thought rather than try and do that, what if we give them the skills to have economic development within their own community? And so we worked with Alberta Aboriginal Relations to get some funding and Northern Lakes College, and the intent was to train Aboriginals from a community that the community selects who the individual is, and they select the projects. And the role PREDA plays in that is our EDOs would actually mentor them. The problem we've had is we've tried working with a couple different communities, and it's just not taking off. And I don't know what the answer is for that one. Transportation Committee. So I'm going to come back to that one because it's a little longer one. We are also working with Alberta. We keep changing the Alberta Human Services, I guess it is now, on best practices for northern employers. Like how do you keep and attract and retain your employees? So we're working on a project, should be done by the end of the year, and it's going to be like a 20-page brochure on best practices, and we're highlighting businesses in our communities, businesses and municipalities too. And to give you a quick example, because I didn't realize this, but Rainbow Lake has most of their own utility services. The municipality supplies internet. What else do they have? No, I think it's natural gas they have. But at any rate, employees there not only get a house, they actually get all their utilities as well. So, and then keeping in mind Rainbow Lake, you know what, you're going to do a lot to attract them there. But, you know, it's working for them, you know, so you do what you have to do. We do regional research. The one that we're most recently working on is the Latino-Barnum line. Most of you are familiar. The rail line goes up to McLennan, and then used to go all the way to, well, it used to go all the way over to Rycroft. Then it was cut off at Druryville, then they changed that, and it's cut off at Flair now and heads north. So with the advent of what's happened in Grand Prairie, 4 Mile Corner there, they're building a transload facility. That's the county of Grand Prairie, and they've got Alcides Group of Jones Devco and Northern Metallic and stuff. They're building that facility. The intention of that facility is to move product from the Peace Country region over to Grand Prairie, then to ports beyond. So there's that, and then there's the whole what's happening with oil on rail, and you guys can see that as soon as you head east out of town here. You can see the huge facilities you have there, and you also understand the challenges we're having with the pipeline. So oil on rail is becoming a reality. I did a report for the Alberta government on that. It's here to stay, and even if you build all the pipelines, you're going to need oil on rail. If we can get that Watina-Wanam line back in place and get them to reopen the Hythe-Dawson Creek line, oil on rail can go directly out to Prince Rupert. You don't have to worry as much about the pipeline. It is effective. It is actually quite safe because our oil is different than the oil that happened in the Atlantic. So, you know, it's another opportunity. Watina-Wanam line has been talked about many, many times. So I'm not saying it's definitely going to happen. CN always opposes it, but I think if we start doing some pre-feasibility, is there some possibility that this might happen? So we're looking at that. Local project funding, I told you about that one. And our PREDA Awards of Excellence, last year we decided that, you know what, we don't recognize enough the people in our region who work together and do something good for our communities. So we developed 3 awards. One is the Citizen of the Year. Last year, Walter Piskowski, most of you will know him, he was a minister and ended up in the end, he was Economic Development Officer for County Grand Prairie. He was a citizen. The municipality was Northern Lights because of the work they did with their surrounding communities. And the business was Happy Trails RV because they give considerable amounts of money, but they gave over $1 million to STARS last year, and STARS affects us all. So those were the 3 that were selected, and we give those out at our AGM. Other things we've done is we've become an umbrella organization. So the Think Local Market, which I believe you guys are members of, actually falls under PREDA. What we do by that is it simply saves them some money and some time. We give them some assistance where we can, but they don't have to set up a separate society and do, you know, the whole schmozzle. So the newest one is this Northern Transportation Advisory Council, and it should be included in your package here. We used to have an organization called the Northwest Corridor Development Corporation. It included BC. That organization basically folded because of a lack of interest from BC, and that came about because they were opposed to the pipelines, and Northwest Corridor supported the pipelines. So the Alberta communities, which were largely between PREDA and the READY Alliance, got together and said, well, they want to keep a transportation committee going. So we've partnered with READY. We have our first meeting coming up here very shortly to develop what the new terms of reference will be. This terms of reference is an initial one, and you guys are more than welcome. We partner with LSLEA as well, and we've been more than happy to have you as partners. The idea is to focus on what transportation corridors, and I don't just mean roads, we include air, pipeline, rail, communication, all of it is included in this, and it's to focus on, 1, getting our commodities out of the province to the nearest port, and 2 is getting the government to understand the importance of the corridors in the north and what needs to be developed. And I think right now is a prime time, because my understanding is Jim Prentice greatly understands the importance of the north, and so with any luck, they'll put a little bit more focus on it. So I'll leave that for you to read, but that's an organization, like I said, right now PREDA and READY are partnering together to bring this forward, and we'd be more than happy to have LSLEA on side. What else can I focus on? Municipal services I told you about. We offer a grant writing service and a grant research service. That's basically a municipality. We charge $50 an hour. Let's say Northern Lights, as an example, will buy 6 hours of grant research, and then they'll give it to, you know, the Sunshine Ladies Skating Club, and they're looking for a grant to redo the boards or something. Then they come to us. The county likes it because they don't have time to do it themselves. It's a minimal cost for them, and usually we can find a grant for something, and whether they get it or not is another issue, but it gives them some benefit there. I talked to you about industry membership already. Oh, there you go. Well, there you go. There's Jalisco, Mexico, and there's Guadalajara, and we were in Puerto Vallarta. Guadalajara is about a 5-hour bus ride from Puerto Vallarta. It's a lovely city. It's very, very big, and they don't speak a lot of English. But the Alberta government has an office there. So if you're ever down there, it's actually worth a visit. Aboriginal engagement I talked about. So we offer, as I said, a variety of services, and that's also in your package there. And that's these municipal contract services. So those contracts, often it's me who does them, but not always. We often will, if we can find somebody else who's available to do it, we always try and pick somebody from the north. We do submit, because what can happen is a municipality can apply for the Municipal Project Fund. And as an example, the G5, which is Settle Hills County, MD of Spirit, Birch Hills County, Rycroft and Spirit River, applied for a grant from the Municipal Project Fund. I think they got, I can't remember, 12,000, then they got another 16 or whatever. So anyways, they wanted to do some information on one, attracting channel population to stay in their community, and an investment attraction package. And so we submitted an RFP as PREDA for it, and they received others as well, and they chose PREDA. So we don't automatically get it, but they can, if they want to, they can pick us. The advantage, of course, is that 50% goes back into the fund there, which is kind of nice. So, and like I said, it's reasonable prices, and we guarantee products. So the Municipal Project Fund, what has that funded to date? We did a study on red meat industry for the County of Grand Prairie. We're losing our red meat industry here. H&M Meats is up for sale and will likely close because they're on about a 50-acre plot of land, far too valuable to use just as a meat plant. So we think we're going to lose them. Johnny Sausage out of Grimshaw just closed their slaughter plant. We funded Paddle the Peace, which was kind of a tourism initiative. Think Local is, we've given them funds that I talked about, Economic Development Strategy for Bridge Hills. That was a separate one. They applied for a grant. They ended up with about 10, and they got another 10 to do theirs. The G5, I told you about that one. During the Peace Oil Sands, we sponsored the bus tour for the youth. Flair had a honey festival, and they brought in a chef to teach people how to use honey in their everyday cooking, and because that's obviously a big issue for Flair, we funded that. The Big Lakes Regional Active Strategy, that's what I talked to you about. And Northern Lights, the County of Northern Lights also is doing that County Development Strategy, and we funded them as well. It's been about the grants. We initially used the grant software to look for grants for PREDA as well. Website, we've been updating our website on a regular basis. The most recent thing, I believe you guys have opted out of Zoom Prospector. Yeah, we didn't. I don't know if it's going to go through. Zoom Prospector is intended to highlight properties that are for sale in municipalities. We saw a benefit for it for the smaller municipalities we have. We have a lot of them. But there's only 3 alliances that have agreed to partner on it, so I'm not sure if that's going to go through or not. But that's one of the areas that we've been working on as well. We're trying to get a calendar of events up there. I mean, there's tons of things you can do, and Linda and Barry can attest to that. My God, if you know, if you have the time and money, you could do a whole lot more. But we have some challenges. So as just a reminder here, so we have 6 executives. They're elected at the AGM. They have a 2-year term. The position is held by the municipality. So as an example, Elaine Garrow is the chair of PREDA. She comes out of the MD of Spirit River. If Elaine, let's say, quit tomorrow and didn't want to do it, MD of Spirit River has the first right to fill that position. And they carry the position for 2 years. And then, I mean, that becomes an issue when you have an election, because sometimes, but the municipality has the first right to keep that that position. 4 membership meetings followed the next day by, or 4 executive meetings followed the next by a membership meeting. We do also have educational sessions and advocacy sessions. We, those are the topics that we've done them on. Electricity was a huge issue. There was a young lady in Flair who had bought one of the buildings downtown. She had an aesthetic, you know, nails and stuff like that. And then she had a couple other days. So she bought a bunch of laundry equipment. She was going to put in a, you know, laundromat there. She had a loan for the building. She got a loan for the laundry equipment. She went to ATCO Electric, and it was over a year to get the electricity. And so she was paying a mortgage, and she was paying for all her equipment, and she couldn't make a dime. And Subway was also looking at going into the building, but they also couldn't get in because ATCO Electric couldn't. It's going to take over a year, and she waited for well over a year. The laundromat is going. I don't know if the Subway is still going to go or not, but we actually brought ATCO Electric to our meeting to discuss that. We also brought the when they had that sale of they sold it to Buffett there, the actual lines and stuff. So we brought them in as well. Oil on rail is a big issue for us, as it is for Big Lakes as well, and you guys, because of what you have right over here. And in particular with that one, where we got involved is the whole issue of the turnoff. Because if you have it's Predator and
Secure, no.
which one is it? Secure? Okay. So, and then right across the road from each other. So if you got trains blocking that, that's a challenge, because then you have all the 70s parked on the outside there waiting to turn in. So that's a road issue that's becoming a big problem up here. We actually, as PREDA, gathered all the information from the different oil and rail facilities and provided it to all of our membership, because we found that some of the companies were using municipalities against each other and saying, well, if you don't agree to our conditions, then we'll just go into the MD. They'll do it for us, you know. If you have all the information from the other sites, then you know what you can expect or look at. Flair's having an issue right now because Altex is in there, And the issue there is that Altex, when they did the original agreement, said they would only have 3 parts H2S per million, or whatever however they do the calculations there. And the reality is in this part of the province that doesn't exist. They were going by what they're getting out of Saskatchewan. So they increased it to 10, and that's still not reasonable because up here it's quite often 200 parts. So right now nothing's moving out of flare. Had they been able to access this information earlier, they would have realized that was an unnecessary, because everybody else is taking it. There is no limits on the H2S. So flare is out 9 jobs because the facility is not being moved. So we've gathered that information, we share that with our membership. So we partner with other organizations, talked about that. Those are advocacy areas, and again, that's what we work on when we're at our membership meetings. What are the issues you guys all want to work on together? We always focus on regional issues, so we don't want to get into the whole urban versus rural. Virtual office, that's already who our board is made up of right now. It goes across the board. We have no requirements as they have to be from a particular area. This is actually a pretty good spread for us. I'm the executive director. That's where I live. My house is not. And that's it. So, any questions?
My questions, you focused quite a bit on grant writing and for your members. How many grants do you write up a year?
Actually, we haven't done any grant writing yet. We do grant searches. We find grants for them. And we don't actually do it. Right now we have a part-timer that works, like she's a consultant. And so when, let's say Northern Lights phones us and says, okay, these are the people who want a grant, then what we do is contact her. She gets paid $50, or she gets paid $42.50 per hour, and we keep $7.50 per hour, which is our administration fee. So we contract it out to her. What we found, the County of Grand Prairie for a while had, in conjunction with some other municipalities, they hired a grant writer, and that's all they did. But the problem is it wasn't enough work for them. So we would have spent quite a bit of time looking for somebody who can do it on a consultant basis, because if they have another job, which she does, it's whenever a project comes up, then she does it. She has the capability to write the grants as well, and then that's up to her to negotiate what that fee would be.
Any other questions?
I can tell you though, we have worked very closely with LSLA. I do think you guys have a great alliance. Our goal, we're not here to try and coerce you into joining PREDA, quite honestly. I don't know if you know the funding works, but the alliances get, it's 2-for-1 funding, so you have to raise up to $37,500 and you get the maximum cap of $75,000. PREDA's well above the $37,500, so even if you joined, we don't get any more money from the government. And I don't want to make this sound like there is no financial advantage for you guys to join. So but don't take that the wrong way. I'm just saying, so you understand, we're not out to poach other members. I think that, you got a great person in Darcy, and I think she can do a great job for you guys. I think very highly of Barry, and I've worked a lot with Linda. We see great value in working together and sharing what we know. I can tell you right now that we're managing the Ready Alliance as well. They've lost their executive director, and they asked us to come in and help manage them for the time being. So we'll be doing that for a 6-month process. We're going to review how they run their alliance, and then we're going to help them hire somebody new. So we see great value. We need to keep our alliances alive and running. We have been going through sessions with the government, and I do believe the government's going to give us more money, which they should, because we do an incredible service for them. And the money should come with as minimal criteria on it. PREDA was quite adamant when they came to us first and offered extra money that if you were going to put a lot of conditions on it, we don't want your money. We're very happy with what we get now. We're able to function. We work on projects that we want to work on. The government does not come to us and say, well, we want to work on industry clusters, so you have to do a project in industry clusters. Our membership hasn't said that's a priority, so no, we're not doing that. Our rep is Lisa Bull. She's a fabulous lady. Prior to that, it was Eric Berkeley. He covered your area. They get invited to our meetings. They don't come to the executive meetings at all. They're not involved in that. They can come to the membership meetings on an invitation basis, and they can contribute as well, but they don't direct us on what we do for our alliance. Our alliance is totally run by the membership. So, at any rate, I really appreciate your time, and we are more than happy to work with you guys. And again, congratulations. I think you got a great group here, and happy to work with you guys. So, anytime we can help you, let us know.
Thank you very much for coming.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Make a motion that council receive Dan DeBelt's Executive Director for the Peace Region Economic Development Alliance PREDA presentation for information.